Good Monday morning, Noblesville, Indiana. Mayor Chris Jenson here alongside my good friend and owner of Pathways to Healing Counseling in Noblesville, Kristen Boice. How are you, Kristen?
Good morning, Mayor Jenson. I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here with you this morning.
We're so glad to have you as always, just continuing to give of your time to this community. Welcome to Mental Health Monday for all of you on this beautiful Monday, March 15th, 2021. We are headed towards springtime. We have a little spring showers here this morning, Kristen, but that's okay because we know that sunshine is on the way. So we're just honored that so many of you have chosen to be with us this morning to talk about our mental health and practice some great techniques. We have a lot of things to cover, Kristen. We're we're coming out of winter time into springtime, but with that comes some new challenges as it relates to our adult lives, as it relates to kids, and some transitions that we have. I know some school systems are thinking about kind of redoing or rethinking through some strategies for getting kids back in the classroom. I know here in Noblesville, next year there's been some redrawing of the elementary school boundaries, which is always a difficult decision on the administrative side. It's certainly a difficult parenting and issue to deal with at home as well. So we're going to talk about that this morning. That was a special request that somebody asked that we cover. So we have a lot to cover. But before we get started, we want to get started the way we always start with some square breathing. So with that, Kristen, I'll let you take it from there.
Thank you. First thing we're going to do is practice this together. And I want you to practice this at home 5 to 6 breaths before you react to something, before you flip your lid, because we've got a lot going on these days. And this is the number one strategy I invite you to try in between our Mental Health Mondays. So we're going to do it together. Feet on the floor. We're going to press into our feet. We're going to inhale through our nose for 4. Hold. That's very important, that hold for 4. And then we're going to slowly release out our mouths for 8, like you're cooling a cookie, cooling the soup. Let's do it together. So inhale, pressing into your feet. And release. Almost so you have no breath left. Let's do one more deep inhale. Hold and release. What I love about this is once you start doing this consistently in your life, you will feel a difference in how you feel regulated. So when the kids are fighting in the back seat, they're screaming, they're kicking each other, you're stressed about work, you're in traffic, you have that trigger that's just about ready. This is my little brain model, and you're ready to just go over the edge. 5 deep breaths. That's what I do at my house. I'm like, 5 deep breaths. And what we can do is recenter, recharge, reconnect. It sounds easy, but it's really not. I mean, I'm making it sound like, oh, just breathe and it's fine. No, it's a practice. So once you start doing this, you'll see results. If you do it consistently, pretty quickly.
I love it. I always try to use some examples throughout this show about what's going on in our lives. And so I have 2 breathing examples. Last week was one of the more challenging weeks that Julie Jenson and I faced with parenting. Our oldest, a 10-year-old, who is a wonderful kid, just had some friend relationship issues that we were helping him work through. And honestly, it was good parental learning moments for us as well on how to parent him. But he was very upset at one point in time and was very unregulated. We were flipped beyond belief. And so we worked on some square breathing to get him calm down, get him centered, to understand how to interact with him. The second thing, this past weekend, anyone who follows along with our life knows that my beautiful wife, First Lady of Noblesville, is very pregnant, 39 weeks pregnant. And she is ready to pop any day. and she would rather pop sooner rather than later. And so we had to work on some square breathing this weekend to talk about just regulating ourselves and preparing ourselves for what's coming. And there, let know that nature sometimes just takes its own course and takes its own time. And we were working through that this weekend. So there was some parental and there was some marital square breathing going on this weekend, Kristen, and I knew you could appreciate that. And I'm sure there are so many people who watch this show that can appreciate that as well. Real life happening there.
Real life. We're all doing breathing. If you come to my house, like, you really do breathe all the time. I'm like, I do, because it's easy to get, triggered. If people aren't listening to you, you walk in the door and there's stuff everywhere and you're like, okay, or someone's getting dysregulated and you're trying to not match it. I mean, we don't want two people flipped. So one of us has got to work on the square breathing. And it might not be me. It might be my husband. It might be me. And then it might be my husband. Who knows who's good. So, but if you bring it as the first person, that's the key. We can't change somebody else. We can only work on ourselves.
Absolutely. I love that.
Examples.
Yes. Well, thank you. So if you are tuning in live right now, or even if you're watching this later, if you have any questions throughout the show, let us know. We'll try to tackle those for you live here on the show, or get back to you later with some answers. If you just want to say hi and let us know that you're watching, that's great too. We always love that. We love to hear from you. So feel free to type in the chat. Let us know you're watching. Say hi. Share a thought. Let us know how you square breathe, or an instance that you have where you square breathe. Feel free to chime in anytime. We are open to those ideas. So I want to start with our first topic, Kristen. That's going to be transitions amongst our kids. This was brought to us actually by a listener, which is really exciting to have somebody offer up a topic. And it really stemmed from the idea about their school-age children. And it was really twofold. One, kind of transitioning back into the classroom. I know a lot of schools around Indiana, around the country, are kind of looking at, how do they get kids back in on a more regular basis going towards the end of school here. So I know Noblesville, for example, sent out a survey to kind of ask some parents. That in itself gives some angst for some folks, knowing that some changes are coming, as we knew would happen at some point in time. And then secondly, this was more specific to this family, but there are some new district boundary lines as Noblesville and really any city continues to grow. You're always looking at the population centers and making sure our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools are equipped to handle all those students. Sometimes that requires some tough decisions that have been made, where kids may have to switch midstream to a different elementary school starting next year. That is a tough transition. That's tough on a kid. That's really tough on a parent too. You kind of get used to principals, teachers, bus routes, bus drivers, you name it. You get a little set in your ways, and you're used to your routine, which I think is key. And that routine's getting thrown off sometimes without, you don't have a lot of say in that. So let's talk a little bit about transitions and kids, Kristen. I would like to, again, not only talk about how do we work with our kids through those transitions, but I do believe sometimes that parents really struggle with those transitions as well, sometimes even harder than the kids. So let's talk about both of those and how we manage those transitions.
Yeah, I think it's an important topic because transitions happen so often throughout our lives. And when our children face transitions and we see their sadness over maybe being separated from what they know, their teachers, their principal, their friends, the bus route, like you said, there's grief, there's sadness. There's two emotions that need to be tended to for parents and for children. One is sadness, which is grief, and two is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the uncertainty. How am I going to make friends? How am I going to feel in my new school? How am I going to feel with the teachers? How am I going to feel with the principals? And the parents have grief because they have connected. Maybe they've made connections, or they have a comfort level, or they have a felt sense of safety in that certain environment or with that school. They know what to expect. They've been in a routine for quite some time. They know what's coming next. So the unknowns typically will trigger a lot of fear, the uncertainty of it. So the first thing I recommend is acknowledging those emotions. We've been learning to connect and identify with our own emotions. So as a parent, you've got to say, what am I feeling? And let's try on those two first. And anger may be there, and that typically is covering up that fear and that sadness. So let's try on fear and sadness first. Let's process with our children, asking them, how are you feeling? What's coming up for you? What are you afraid of? Those are typically going to be, they're afraid of not knowing if they're going to be able to have friends. They're going to miss their friends. They're going to miss their teachers. Normalize, acknowledge, empathize, provide a warm environment for them to feel safe enough to open up with you. Secondly, is if you can go tour the school, if you can go look at it ahead of time, if you can go outside and walk around looking at the playground, if you can meet some of the teachers, if you can set up a meet and greet, that is also very helpful to start that ability to connect and visualize what this might look like. Saying goodbye to, some of their teachers and knowing that you can go back and say, we can come back and visit. We can come back and say hi to our teachers. That is an important part of the transition. So when we allow them to process the emotions, have some acknowledgement about what they feel. And number 3 is having that ability to foresee what's coming next by going and looking at the school, touring the school, maybe doing a meet and greet, that type of thing. That can be very helpful. Sometimes that's not possible. You can just drive by, you can show pictures, you can get online and look at the school, look inside. A lot of times on the school website, there's pictures of the school. That's also helpful. And talking through what are they afraid of. Don't shy away from that. What we tend to do is go, it's going to be fine. It's going to be great. You're going to make new friends and da-da-da-da-da. We go into positivity, which there's a place for that after we've done processing. We need to process and acknowledge. What we tend to do is reverse the order. Instead of letting the children process first, we try to make it all wonderful. And we're not processing our own feelings as parents. That's critical. So not with your child. You need to process that with your partner, with a friend. Process what you're feeling so then you can be totally attuned to what your child's feeling and not project what you're feeling onto the child, because the child might be totally fine. It's your anxiety, it's your fear that gets projected, put on the child unconsciously.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Can we discuss the word fine real quick? Because that gets thrown around a lot sometimes. In our society, it certainly gets thrown around a few times at my house. It's fine. It's fine. It's all fine. It's fine. Can we talk about what that means and kind of, how to work through it being fine or not fine?
That is so critical, because how many fine? What did you do today at school? Nothing. Okay. So the first thing you're going to want to say, it's normal to have feelings about change. And you may be saying it's fine. And I'm kind of picking up, I'm wondering if there's anything else going on. Do you feel sad? I'm going to ask specific questions. No. And it's normal to feel sad. It's normal to feel sad that you might not see your friends. And that makes sense. If they go, then the next question is, do you have any fears? So I'm going to ask specifically about fear and sadness. And they may still respond with fine. And I'm going to say, that's okay. If you have anything that comes up, any feelings, I'm available and I'm more than happy to talk to you about it. It's okay to write it out. It's okay to talk to us about it. Now, when they do come to you, let's say they decide right before they're going to bed, because this is notorious. They're like, and by the way, I don't want to go to a new school. And you're like, it's bedtime, and you're done and you're spent. And you're like, I don't want to be talking right now. Take 5 deep breaths and provide the space and acknowledge it in that moment. Say, that makes sense. Whenever there's a change, there's, sadness is part of that sometimes, and that's okay to let it out. It's okay to have your feelings. Is there more? Yeah, I would have missed my school. Yeah, that makes sense that you're going to miss your school. It's okay to miss your school. What we want to do is go, well, it's all going to be fine. You're going to be great. You're going to make new friends. You're going to love your teacher. I've heard great things about that school. Okay, so I bypassed all that processing. Let them process. And then you're going to offer empathy and acknowledgement by saying, it's okay to have your feelings. That makes sense. You can write these 2 phrases down. That makes sense. You feel that way. It's okay to have those feelings. It's okay to process. It's important to process what you're feeling so then we can get it out. The other thing is sometimes symptomatically children will hold emotions in their body, and so do adults. But children will say, my stomach hurts. I don't feel well. I have a headache. My throat hurts. I just don't feel good. That's usually a sign that something, not always, I mean, of course it can be sick. I like to know if there's nothing really that you're sensing that could be illness. I always ask, what are you feeling? Are you feeling scared about something? Are you feeling sad? And they may not have the words. Get books. Scaredy Squirrel is a great series that is used to talk about feelings. There's tons of feeling books out there. I need to bring a stack in here of all the ones I have. So you can start having a dialogue on emotions. Name feelings. Put a feeling chart up. You can use Inside Out, the movie from Disney. They have charts. You can just Google Inside Out feeling faces. Put it up on your refrigerator. So you start normalizing talking about feelings. And it takes time, especially when there are feelings. I'm fine will be a typical response. So just take a deep breath and say, are you feeling sad? Are you feeling scared? It's okay to have those feelings. Those are normal. I'm here if you want to talk about them. Mm-hmm. That's the most important piece is the response to that.
Yeah. So 2 questions I had. One, basically what you're telling us is that it is okay for us to call out the emotion that we think our child may be feeling. Correct.
As long as we're asking it tentatively and not like, you're mad, you're sad. That's going to create defensiveness. So when we say you fill in the blank, when we say, are you feeling sad? Totally appropriate. Are you feeling scared? My tone is soft. My tone is warm. That's the difference. So when we go, well, you are mad. Okay, they're going to shut down because my energy just shifted.
Mm-hmm. That's helpful. And then as a parent, if once I've processed an emotion, for example, is that okay if I share with my child how I feel about something? Or how would you suggest we approach that?
Yes, it depends on the situation. Oftentimes I will say stick to the child's feelings first. Yep. Because we don't want the child to then take on caretaking us through our emotions. And so I might say something like, you are not responsible for taking care of, making me feel better. It makes sense you feel sad because I'm a little sad too. It's hard. I love that school. And I know it can bring up a lot of emotions transition. I remember when I was in 2nd grade and we moved and I was scared to death. I switched schools. So I might share just to kind of open it up, little story from when I was in 2nd grade and I switched schools. If they start shutting down, I'm going to be like, I'm going to pause my story and check in and say, did you feel any of those things? If they go, no, I'll go, oh, okay, that's fine too. Whatever you feel is okay. You don't have to feel the way I felt in 2nd grade. Sure. Stories are good. Kids love your childhood stories. As long as you're not bypassing and making it about you versus them, you're using it as a connecting point and you're not going into lecture mode. Like sometimes people can go on and on with stories. And you're like, the children are glazed over. So you're going to be looking to see how am I sharing how I feel and are they connecting to it or are they shutting down?
Land the plane is what I say. Land the plane with your story. Yes, I like it. Let's shift gears a little bit. I want to talk about, obviously, spring break is a couple weeks away, which we're excited about. We are going to be taking a few weeks off of Mental Health Monday during spring break time because we want to put acknowledgement and emphasis on self-care. So many people right now, I've heard it once, I've heard it a dozen times, they're burnout. They're burnout at work, they're burnout at home, they're over COVID, you name it, they are burnt out. So let's address burnout first, maybe what that looks like. If you could talk a little bit about maybe what burnout might look like in you or feel in you. And then let's pivot and end on a self-care note going into spring break and what self-care looks like, what it means to your body, different methods for self-care. It's kind of a wide swath of information there, but let's start with burnout first.
Burnout. Everybody at some point will experience burnout, whether it's caretaking the family, the kids, your job, like going to your, putting a lot into your job. Maybe it's Zoom burnout. Maybe you've got fatigue over being on the internet all the time, doing video calls. Whatever that looks like, usually we start with exhaustion. And you're going to feel it in your nervous system. You're going to feel it in your body, apathy, like just a lack of motivation. You're going to feel this sense of, I really just don't feel like doing anything. I don't want to do anything. I am tired of this. I'm sick of this. I don't like this. You might have a change in sleep patterns. So you may be sleeping more, or you may be having trouble staying asleep, falling asleep. You may be having challenging eating patterns where you find yourself in the pantry and you're like, I just ate a whole bag of potato chips and I don't even know why, because, right, these are things that happen. You may be scrolling the internet for hours, trying to numb out. You're trying to disconnect from the overwhelm that you feel, from the stress that you feel. The first thing I invite people to do is you got to do your breathing. You're going to be so sick of me over all these years saying the breathing. It literally is the first step, because what the breathing does, it reconnects you to what's inside. It reconnects you to what do you feel. It reconnects you to kind of getting grounded and recentered. The second thing is we've got to acknowledge emotions. And we know that you can't get out of a call doing one of these mental health Mondays without me talking about emotions. Mm-hmm. We've got to acknowledge, are you sad about something? Are you angry about something? Again, anger can be a cover-up for fear and sadness. Do you feel disgusted with something? What are you afraid of that you're not processing? We have to process those emotions. Otherwise, your body's going to take it on and you are going to feel so exhausted and so worn out. And we want to normalize everybody's over this being at home. We are exhausted from it. The unknown, the uncertainty, what's going to happen next. It's okay. It's okay for you to have emotions. It's okay to feel the way you feel. What we do is we end up going into shame. So shame says there's something wrong with me. I'm defective. I'm not good enough. This leads to burnout. This leads to really feeling disconnected from yourself and other people. We kind of want to go into the dark. We go into a hole. We want to hide. We don't want to tell people what's really going on because we feel so unworthy. We feel so unimportant. We feel like nobody cares, nothing, I don't matter. And shame really takes us into a place of shutdown. And so the antidote to burnout and that shame is self-compassion. So what is self-compassion? People are like, we didn't grow up with self-compassion. This wasn't a thing. We didn't even know what it meant. It wasn't really practiced per se. So I'm going to read you a definition because I like to go off definitions. So self-compassion is extending compassion, nurturing yourself, and when you feel in instances of perceived inadequacy, like you feel like you're not good enough at something, you feel like a failure, or in general, you feel a sense of suffering, you're offering yourself grace. You're offering yourself empathy. You're offering yourself a sense of nurturing yourself. And research shows that people who are more, and I love this, that's why I wrote it down to tell you, because this seems so counterintuitive. Research shows that people who are more self-compassionate have more emotional intelligence, they have more meaning and purpose in their life, and they're better able to maintain emotional balance when they feel flustered or they go into shame, anxiety, and guilt. It's the antidote to shame. So if you're in the dark abyss and you feel like you're a piece of crap and you feel like nobody gives a rat's patootie about you and you feel like you're not good enough and you're worthless, the antidote to that is to say, okay, I always kind of place, I know this sounds cheesy, but I put my hand kind of on my heart. I take my deep breaths. When I say, okay, honey, you're okay. I know this is hard. I acknowledge what I'm going through. I know you feel sad. I know you're over this and you're exhausted and you are just feeling lonely. We're going to get through this. Let's just take a deep breath. So I'm showing you what self-compassion looks like. Like I'm giving you an example and you're going to be like, oh, I'm not going to do that. This is the way out, people. This is the way out. This is through research shows us when we offer ourselves warmth, which we talked about last time, that all families need warmth. Warmth is compassion and empathy, self-regulation, and a safe place to have a felt sense of what you're feeling and be able to express that. That's what we're going to offer ourselves. That's the antidote to burnout. That's the antidote to shame. And then we can start doing some movement, right? After I've kind of acknowledged what I feel, now I might go for a walk. I might pet the dog or cat. I might phone a friend. I might decide I need to take a little weekend away. Whatever that looks like for you, that is what you're going to give yourself because no one else is going to give it to you. We wait. We're like, who's going to take care of me? I've been taking care of everybody else. Can someone take care of me? And nobody really signs up because they don't have it to offer. So we have to give that to ourselves. Let's not wait and be dependent on waiting for someone else to give it to us. Let's give it to ourselves. That's the essence of moving through burnout.
So tell me, is self-compassion and self-care the same thing?
I would say yes, in a lot of ways, because really you can't do self-care without self-compassion. It's going to be a disconnect. You're going to go, oh, I did that walk and I still feel like terrible. I still feel angry and burned out. And it's a process of acknowledging what you really feel, your body sensations, the beliefs, that shame that's keeping you stuck. That is the antidote to getting to the self-care. It's the step one that really they go hand in hand. They're kind of married together. Great.
1A and 1B. I just think that I wanted to be clear on that because I think people hear self-care. Like personally, I did some self-care last week and it came in the form of an entire roll of Thin Mints. And I didn't feel much better about myself afterwards. So, but I think I missed the self-compassion piece on the front end of that. And so I'm only half joking, but I really did eat the entire roll, which is not hard to do. Not at all. But let's talk a little bit about, so that's really good to know. Because I think we have to, it's kind of a 1A, 1B situation there for yourself, right? What does self-care not look like?
Self-care does not look like taking care of, like, oh, I will, in order to get worth, value, and significance, I will start just giving all the time without boundaries. Like so sometimes self-care people are like, I'm going to the spa and then I'm taking care of myself, which is great, but we're not adding in the self-compassion and the grace. So it doesn't last. We went to the spa, we came back home and we're right back where we were. It really is that self-compassion piece coupled with that self-care. And I want to add in boundaries. Self-care means we have healthy boundaries. Boundaries are what's okay, what's not okay. Saying no, setting limits. We don't want to disappoint anybody. We don't want to make anyone mad. We don't want to upset anybody. So we end up saying and doing things to please other people. And then we are so resentful and we are burned out and we can't do self-care without boundaries. We cannot. So that's one of the myths. Like, okay, I'll go to the spa and then I'll feel better. And then you go and you right back to the same patterns and you're right back to the burnout. That's great to do the spa and boundaries and self-compassion.
Yeah. I love that. Like I said, that this has been such an insightful show. So thank you, Kristen. This has been so incredibly helpful. And I think it's important for folks heading into spring break, heading into this time of year, heading into these transitions, that self-compassion and self-care component. We got to focus on that going forward to take care of ourselves. So with a few remaining minutes, quickly, I want to make sure we end. If someone is watching today, maybe it's their first time, maybe it's their 30th time, but they are at the end of the rope today. They are struggling today. They need help right now. Where do they turn?
The first thing, most people at this point have access to a cell phone or someone that has a cell phone. I want you to text 741-741, type in connect or help. Someone will immediately respond and hold the space for you and meet you where you are. That is so important. Do not try to do this alone. The next place is to call 1-800-273-TALK. That's a national suicide hotline, 1-800-273-TALK. They're wonderful. This is what they do. They walk people through the hard because we're in emotional pain. That's what's happening. We don't know how to deal with the emotional pain. When we can acknowledge our pain, offer grace to ourselves, we can start the healing process. If you're here in Hamilton County in Noblesville, Prevail. If you're in a domestic violence situation or emotional abuse, they have a 24-hour hotline, 317-776-3472. We also have the disaster distress helpline at 1-800-985-5990. Community North here in Indianapolis, or we have Fairbanks if you're struggling with any addiction issues. And we also have St. Vincent Stress Center. So please know there is help available. please don't try to do this alone. You matter, you're important, and you're enough. And those, we don't get told truths like that. We believe the lies that we might have been told, or we might believe the stories. And I just want you to know that you are worth it.
Yeah, that you are worth it. You are absolutely worth it. Thank you so much, Kristen Boice, once again for sending your time. You are a blessing to this community. We will be back here in 4 weeks. We're going to take some time for some self-care. Spring break's coming up. We're going to have a baby. We're going to take a little bit of time. We're going to see you all back here on Monday, April 12th, with more topics on Mental Health Monday. In the meantime, take care of yourself. Kristen Boice, thanks again.
You too. Thank you.